Welcome back to the GoBros YouTube channel. Today we're going to be starting our second square drop camper build. This one's going to be a little bit different. We're going to be building our own trailer. The last one we used an aluminum trailer which didn't have very much ground clearance. This time we're going to be using like 30-inch tires, give us a little bit more ground clearance, and it should be a little bit more off-roady looking. We'll get into more details as the build progresses, but the trailer that we're building first is going to be a 5-foot wide by 10-foot long trailer. The actual cabin of the camper will be 8 feet long with a 2-foot box in the front. That'll house all of our batteries and electronics. We're going to get started and start cutting out the frame for this trailer. Alright, so I kind of laid everything out. I got my two 10-foot long pieces cut, and I believe it was 48 inches on the inside. That's 5 foot from the center of there to the leaf spring to the center of the leaf spring is 5 foot. So I'll have just a little bit sticking on each edge. I have it square right now, and I'm not going to weld it up in here yet. I actually want to go out on the basketball court where it's perfectly flat. So I'm sure to get everything nice and level. But I know for sure I'm going to need a couple more supports. So I'm going to go ahead and get them cut out and we'll lay them in here too. After a lot of fitting pieces and trying to figure out what frame design I want, this is what I've come up with. Obviously this piece and that piece are just sitting there in there to mock stuff up. I got to cut 2 more 5-foot long pieces for that. I got my water tank sitting in here. That's how they'll be sitting. I got them close to the axle, but I have some plywood over there that's only 6 feet long. So the end of this bar to the middle of that bar is 6 feet, so I can use that plywood. But it's close enough to the axle where the weight should be distributed well. My next step will be to cut 2 pieces to replace those, and then I'm gonna basically take the axle off, take the tanks off, and start making sure everything's square, corner to corner, and then maybe start tack welding the outside frame together. Alright, so we got the top side tack welded. I'm going to tip it up on its side so I can tack weld the bottom side now. Alright, so I just whipped up some of these triangle gussets out of its 1/8-inch plate. So those are, I'm going to tack weld 4 of these in each one of the main corners. And then I'm going to lay it down flat and start fully welding out the top side of this trailer. Everything's welded up now. The past couple hours I've just been welding away. I showed some of it, but you know, it's just kind of boring stuff. Welded all the way around each piece. For that little welder, it does pretty good. It's nothing crazy, but if you get the settings right, it really does do a pretty good job. So the next step to building the trailer is mounting the axle. And the way we do that, I kind of have it over here with these little pieces like that. It's 2 inches between them, and so those will fit perfectly on here. I got them marked out here where the back of the leaf spring should be, both sides. That's hard to see, but it's right there. So I'm gonna get those brackets welded on there. This is actually the top, so I gotta flip it over and weld them to the bottom side. But I can do that. Get our axle mounted up, and then put the tires on. Then we just got a tongue to work on. So I got the frame sitting up on a couple benches. We got to go through and blend all the edges so everything sits flush. I already went through, kind of see, on the bottom side, so those are nice and flat. I did these outside corners, so I just have this top side to do, and then we can go move on to the next step. So I got a couple things mocked up. I realized that the axle needs to be flipped on the bottom side, and these tabs that I have, they actually need to be about 3 inches taller. So I'm gonna have to whip up some new ones of those. And also I have to put shackles in the backside, so once the leaf spring compresses, it has somewhere to go, because that leaf spring is gonna lengthen out as more weight gets put on it. So I gotta put shackles in here so it can move. Once I get them, I gotta cut these back off and weld on some longer ones, and then we'll mount the axle back up. This is my makeshift jig for my tongue. I wanted to lay everything out to see kind of how it looked, and I believe this is kind of what I'm gonna go with. Obviously not 2x4s, but those will go to that second bar right there, and then the straight piece will go all the way back to the second bar. And then once I flip this over, I'll put some, it's kind of like expanded metal, but it actually has holes in it, and it'll go on that side, so I can put like propane tanks or something like that on there, so I have a little more storage on the tongue. So after discussing with a couple different people, this is kind of what I came up with so far. I got everything tack welded together. I have a couple spacers in here, so my shivs can go on the inside. Once I get the axle up here, I should have about 4 inches of travel, which that's what the leaf spring calls for. I'm gonna mock the axle up and make sure everything looks all right, and then tear it all apart and weld them brackets solid. We have officially got these all welded on. See there, they're welded on every side. Everything's kind of bolted up. For my spacer in here, I just used a 1/2 inch coupling. Fit perfectly in my with my 9/16 bolts. That side's done. I'm gonna get the axle in here and kind of get that bolted up before I go ahead and tighten everything up. So before I go into anything else real major, I'm gonna go ahead and weld this 2-inch receiver on. A lot of people put these on and a lot of people don't. I figured it's like 20 bucks. Might as well put it on now, so I don't have to do it later when I decide to. I decided to take a break from the back of the trailer for a little bit and start working on the tongue. I have everything basically laid out how I think I want it. I'll have just enough room up here to put a propane tank or something bigger that I want to keep outside. The only issue is I ran a little bit short on metal, so I am gonna just have a little piece here that I have to weld onto there. I'll have to make sure it's perfectly centered on there, but I have a couple smaller pieces, but I didn't have a long enough piece in there. Some people just leave that right out, but I figure if I weld a little piece on there, it's better than not having it at all. And then over here, you can just use basically some simple geometry, if you remember it from class, to get your angles correct. As you can tell, my angles seem to turn out fairly well. I would recommend using a 2x4, just a scrap 2x4, and cut your angles out on that first, and you can kind of lay them out here and make sure your angle's right. The last thing you want to do is cut one of these pieces of metal and the angle be wrong, and then you're short on metal. I got everything clamped down. The next step, we're going to tack weld each corner, and this will have to get pushed down just a little bit, so that's level there. but we're gonna weld this up, and then we can move on to the next project. So one of the last final steps before we can put the tires on and flip it over is these are going to be the mounts. Oh, actually they're going to go this way. These will be the mounts that bolt the actual camper to the trailer. So they'll sit flat like that, and then I'll have a 2x6 here, and we'll bolt them all the way through. Make sure the camper is held onto the trailer nice and tight. I have 6 of these, so I'm going to put 2 on the back side, 2 on the front side, and then 2 in the middle. So one of the last areas on the trailer that we have to work on is the jacks. I went back and forth with putting them in the front and in the back, but I think the back is going to be better just for stability wise. I know my axles are more towards the back than the front, but I'm thinking this is going to give us the most stability, and I will have a jack up there, which is sitting over there. We got to test fit that too. But I think right here, I'm going to end up cutting another piece of tubing and putting it there. And then I can bolt through there and bolt up this way too. And then if I ever want to take these off, I was going to weld them, but I figured I probably should bolt them in case I ever want to take them off. Decided I didn't want to drill through this. I couldn't do that because I'm going to have my walls that come down here, and if I have a bolt there, it's not gonna sit flat. So I put a couple angle pieces here so I can put a bolt through here, like so. I can still get to it from underneath the trailer, and this will slide underneath there, bolt down. I just got to go through and weld these all out, and then I can put the jack under there and kind of test it to make sure it's good. Then we can move on to that side. All right, the top side is welded up. I got it kind of mocked up sitting there up to a drill. As you can see, that works perfectly. Like that. So that way, if we end up blowing a tire or something, change the tire, and these will be nice and strong. I'm gonna take the tires off, and once I get the other side done, I gotta rotate it up. I got some welds I gotta finish there, and a couple welds up by the tongue I gotta finish, but I have to flip the trailer over in order to do that. So after a lot of welding, and I mean a lot of welding, and way more time than I thought it was going to take, the base trailer is almost completely done. Our next step is going to be building some fenders to go around there. They'll just come out from the main frame in kind of a hoop. There'll be a flat spot on the top, so you're able to stand on the fender to get on top of the roof or to put something on the roof. It also doubles as a table. And then once we're done with that, we will take the axle and the tires off again. We're gonna bed liner the whole frame. We're gonna tape off the whole top of the frame so we can mount our walls or weld our walls to the frame. And then we're gonna be bed linering everything but the axle. We'll bed liner the leaf springs to protect. Our fenders are gonna be made out of 3/4 by 3/4 16 gauge square tubing. Basically the same thing that is going to be making our walls or the actual frame of the camper. And we're going to have, I got a little bit of this 2x2 square tubing left. So we're going to be making our, kind of like our brackets. There's going to be about a 12-inch piece that's welded to the frame. And then our hoops going over will be that 3/4 by 3/4 tubing. And then we'll put plate on, there'll be 3 sides, one on top, this side, and the other side. We'll put plate there. And then we'll bed liner that along with the trailer when we get to that step.